Hello, everyone. I'm Austin Light with American Demon Comics, and I'm joined by Brandon Ingram with Dismay Comics. And we're here to talk about our thoughts and opinions that have are very little value um, in the movie industry. And today we wanted to discuss uh, the film Strange Darling, which was a Brandon recommendation.
A movie that pretty much no one saw, which is unfortunate. I'm gonna look up the box office mojo right now. I remember is like 1.5 million. Maybe it made a little bit more. The Strange Darling. Let's see what we have here. Okay, it made a whopping $3.3 million. And regarding movies, that's not a lot. It's not good.
Mhm.
Uh, this movie definitely cost at least $3 million to make. I'm assuming in the modern Hollywood landscape of making the movie, marketing the movie, which I mean, like they didn't do an amazing job at marketing because like I
That was
never
under the
saw any
earth.
trailers of
No.
this. Like the reason I found out about this was every now and then I purposely do this because of instances like this. I'll go on the AMC app and I'll go to the coming soon page and I'll just scroll and see what's coming out. And that happened with this movie. It was like 2 weeks before it came out and I saw it and I was like, ooh, what's this? Then I watched the trailer. I was like, okay, it's pretty good. And since then, never saw a trailer on YouTube or anything like that. Um,
Mm-mm.
it's a shame because this was one of my favorite movies this year, me personally. Um, I like the movie. We'll get to specifics later, but yeah.
Yeah, we're going to go over the broad strokes real quick on our initial impressions. And for me, I enjoyed it, and I think I'd give it, a score. If I was going to give it a score, it'd be like a 7. Um,
Yeah, that's pretty good.
and it was fun to watch. It was, I did take some notes for it that were posted in my notes on
Oh,
Substack. So if I can pull it up, it'll kind of jog my memory on some of the highlights of it that I
that is the thing. I
put up.
remember a good bit about it, but it was like I think 3 weeks ago when I saw it.
Yes,
So I
it's been.
remember a decent bit, but like specific detail, like every minute sort of thing, like not really that, but the overall, I remember a good bit.
Yeah, it's been 3 weeks for me as well. Um, but I did say that it was a good story, fun pacing, and had very good artistic shots
Oh
throughout the
yeah, yeah.
movie.
It's at the very beginning of the movie because I didn't know what the movie was going to be. When it first started, I first thought it was going to be a little pretentious. I thought that's what it was going to be
Yeah.
because it says like this is a 6 chapter story, and then it's like, but we're going to start at chapter 3. That's where the movie starts. It starts at chapter 3 in the middle, sort of thing, and then it starts bouncing to places. It wasn't
Hmm.
until about midway through the movie where a reveal happens where I'm like, ooh, I really like that they did this in terms of how they pace things out. The first 20, 30 minutes, I liked the movie, but I didn't know where it was going to go to where I was like, yeah, the chapter thing, how they're switching around, that's so pretentious. But then once a reveal happens, I'm like, oh, I'm so glad they did this. Like,
Yeah. Um, yeah. So that would be my first thing is the fun pacing that they did use it. I was coming off the sour taste that Longlegs had left in my mouth
mm,
about the splicing and using uh, these kind of intermission cuts of chapter
Yeah, yeah.
XYZ. But Strange Darling did have a reason more so behind it.
Oh, 100%.
Mhm.
Yeah, you think I forgot about that with Long Legs. This one, because a lot of movies do this, and we talked about it with our Long Legs review. I talked about how a lot of movies are starting to put the chapter one and
Mhm.
then chapter two or part one, part two. You see that in the movie and stuff, it'll pop up. And at least half of them, it's like, this isn't warranted. You didn't need to do this. It seems a little pretentious.
Yeah.
Um, Long Legs, we talked about how it was kind of a 50-50 with that. This one, I think it does it well in terms of doing that. In terms of like, oh, now it's the red the red screen and it says chapter whatever, and then we go into that scene. It has a reason for it.
Right.
That's what I like to see is you have a reason for doing that, because if you don't, it comes off very pretentious. And that's why the first 20 to 30 minutes of this, that's why I was like, this is so pretentious that they're doing this, as well as they're rearranging the order and stuff. But then
Mhm.
once something happens midway through, I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
great job. That
Yeah.
like my thoughts on that completely changed, sort of thing.
Right. Um, I'm still not like the big. By the way, I wanted to mention this real quick. There's going to be spoilers. This is your warning.
Yes.
Um,
So before spoilers, I had mentioned, like Austin mentioned, 7 out of 10 for him. Basically, for me, I might say like 8.5 out of 10 for me, something like that. Um, we'll say for me personally, it's my third favorite movie this year. Dune Part Two was my favorite. Civil War has been my second, and then this is third. Now, there's a ton of other movies coming out this year. All of those could easily get bumped down. This could get bumped down, but I really enjoyed it. Um, so, before getting into spoilers, would you recommend this to people?
yeah, yeah, I would recommend for a fun watch. It's it's hard for me to say, and I mean I definitely recommend it. Like I can answer that absolutely. Um, but as we get more into the details, um, it's less. I'm not very uh, optimistic on my answers as certainty. So
No, no, yeah, I
yeah,
get what you mean. I would recommend it. I enjoyed it. It is, I think, genre wise, a horror. And I'd say it is a horror, but it's not your typical horror. It's not like the the literal monster or paranormal or this or that. Like, but in realism, there are some things where it very much was for me. I was like, oh God,
hmm
I'm scared. So it is a horror. It is more like Austin had mentioned. The pacing is real good. It feels more like a suspense thriller, but it is horror in a different route. But yeah, I'd recommend it. So
yep,
if you don't want to hear spoilers, click off, come back to this. I recommend watching the movie before spoilers, because um, going into it fresh, I
right.
think, is a good way to see this movie.
It'll be it'll be rather. I think it'd be kind of dampened once you hear because this is a
If
movie
you
that kind of
hear,
has a twist.
yeah, yeah, and that definitely affects how you see the story. So go into it fresh, that sort of thing.
All
Spoiler talk now.
right. um. So let's see the first thing I want to get into is like there was some intense moments of like I kind of feel this they grabbed my interest less so with like it being chapter 3 and more so with what was happening, um and and also less so with the kind of pretentious really long shot at the beginning. It was a
Mm.
good shot, it was fun. Sometimes I just wish it's like, okay, this is, I get what's happening. I don't have to
Are you
be
talking
here for
about
30 seconds.
specifically the car chase, like cars
No,
going down the road
the
sort of
running
thing?
shot. She's running in slow motion through the
Oh yeah, yeah.
field,
I can see what you mean. Yeah, yeah,
and they're putting up the credits and stuff like that.
yeah, yeah.
And
I can see that.
um, I mean, I guess if I'm trying to read the credits, it makes sense. But I'm also not like here for the credits, so speed it
And
up.
I'm happy you have the credits and you show you're crediting the artists that make it and stuff. But at the end of the day, most of us don't look at the credits. So yeah, that's
um,
why whenever credits roll, the black screen rolls, almost no one stays around for that. Unless it's a Marvel movie where it's like, oh, something else is going to happen. And
yeah.
when the black screen happens and the credits roll, no one's looking at the screen anymore. They're looking at their phone
Yeah.
until the end credit scene happens.
um, I might look for if there's a song or something I didn't know what was. But anyway, the once it gets started, the movie gets going and it gets going pretty good. And you're kind of like, ooh, wow, this is harsh. It's kind of harsh. And and our main protagonist is going through the woods, and she comes across this like random abandoned encampment of like an alcoholic or something. I can't really recognize why that was there, but she comes across some liquor, and she has a
Oh, that's
severely
right.
injured ear. And one of the most gripping parts was when she had to go. She had to like bite down a thing.
Yeah, yeah.
This There's a person chasing her through the woods with a gun, and then she's like, I gotta like sanitize this a little bit, and bites down, pours that liquor on that open wound that's bleeding, and I went, oh,
I forgot about that part. I guess a critique I have, like rose tinted glasses off sort of thing. A critique I have is I remember that part now, and I remember thinking like, couldn't you do this like 5 to 10 minutes from now? He's in the woods looking after you. You hear him looking after you. Why didn't you just keep running, sort of thing?
yeah, yeah.
So that's my only crit. She doesn't get caught right there, but that is a critique I would say is like, take the bottle with you and keep running. Why did you stop right there at the tree and it's like, now's the time to disinfect? Oh, hey guy, and shoots her sort of thing. It's like, no, that's not the. Yes, it needs to be disinfected, but I think you're okay, life or death sort of
Mhm.
situation, to wait 10 to 15
Yeah,
minutes.
I think they had to have put that in there for my reaction, like a person like me, that's just like, oh, that's painful, like ow,
Oh
like I
yeah,
don't want to
yeah. I
feel that,
definitely felt the painful thing, but my issue was like yes, it needs to be disinfected, but now
No,
is
I
not the
totally
time.
get you.
Run.
Yeah, yeah. It's a one of those dumb decisions that's in there for a spectacle moment. Um, but it starts out chapter 3. It's going. She's chased, like you said before in the other podcast. She, man's chasing her, shoots, car flips, running through the woods. Um, and you really you get interested in like, yeah, how did this happen, how did this get here? um but they're very obviously making this like, you are following these two people, and one of them's good and one of them's bad, and it's like,
Yeah,
and we're only giving you this much, and so
yeah.
you go off
And,
that.
and based on what you have, like you're like, oh, like you're rooting for one person, specifically the female. You're rooting for her, like, oh, like get away because this guy seems like a crazy guy. And they do a good job, because you don't see it till later. They do a good job where, like, it's not just him driving down the road and seeming crazy. Like, he has like a his face, but also he looks like kind of drug rattled. There's a reason for that.
Yeah.
You see that later. And he also has like cocaine bags, and he's like,
Hmm.
like in the truck,
Yeah.
he's like snorting the cocaine stuff. It's like, oh, this seems like a bad guy. Like, clever having that sort of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Um, but it really does like want you to kind of be like, okay, this is what's happening. Um, and then each chapter kind of reveals a little bit more,
Hmm.
and you still keep getting you at chapter. Let's see, it starts at 3, and then it goes
It starts at
to
3, then
like
is it 1 or 2?
it's got to be 1
It's
or 2.
1. I think
Yeah,
it's
it's got to
1,
go
thinking
back to
about it.
1.
Yeah. I think it
Um,
goes to 1, then 4, and then 2, I think. Or hold on. Okay, it before the reveal happens, the reveal happens, we do see chapter 4, because that's whenever she goes to the old hippie's house and stuff. Like,
yeah.
that's when she goes there. Um, and then it's hard to explain the linear path
Yes,
if
yes.
no one has seen it or anything like that. Because I could explain it chronologically, but that's not how the
Mhm.
movie is laid out. It's laid
Mhm.
out in these orders to where halfway through the movie it's finally revealed kind of what's happening, sort of thing.
Okay,
Um,
I don't want to dance around
yeah,
this
yeah,
this
yeah,
this piece anymore.
yeah, yeah. Bring it
Um,
up.
so in your twist, in chapter 5, I want to
Yeah,
say,
chapter 5.
is when you get an understanding. You get more so of an understanding of what's going on.
The
Uh,
very end of
or
chapter
no,
5.
no, it's the very end of chapter 4.
Well, what it
Or
is. Hold on, no. The end of chapter
here
4
we go
is.
again.
Hold on. Here's what it is. So chapter 5 is whenever he is in the house and he sees that the old couple is dead, the
Yeah,
meat is thrown out, sort of thing. Chapter
yeah,
5 ends
yeah.
with him shooting at the freezer that she's in.
Mm-hmm.
That's where chapter 5 ends. So chapter 4 is whenever she like goes to the old couple's house, and like they're talking and stuff. And
Yeah,
how does chapter
yeah.
4 end? Oh, I think chapter 4 is when it's kind of revealed. And then chapter 2 shows it more.
Well, that's what I
Chapter
mean.
4 chapter 4 is where we see her, like, that's what it is. Okay, sorry everyone. We're jumping around. Chapter 5, we see that the old couple is dead. And we don't
Hmm.
know how. We think, okay, maybe he shot them or something. We don't know.
Right.
We didn't see that. He's
At
in the
the
house
end of
now,
one
though,
of these
looking for
midway
her.
chapters, she
Chapter
drops
4 is what it
a
was.
very
Chapter 4.
yeah.
Well, before she's talking with him in the hotel room, chapter 4 is where we see her
No, she's
come into
talking
the old couple's house.
in the old couple's house. She drops a very important detail.
Yeah,
Um, and so she's needing help. She's desperate for some help. Obviously, she's got this missing ear, and she's beat up and has been running through the woods. And this old hippie and this old biker are have essentially welcomed her into the house to kind of help
yeah.
her with this danger. They weren't too sure what was going on, and around the end of the scene, she is trying to, or the guy is saying,
They
"We
they
gotta
want to
call the
call
police.
911. Yeah,
We
yeah,
gotta call the police," and she's like, "No, we, we don't. I no cops, please. No."
yeah, yeah,
She's very like, I don't want cops to be involved with this. No.
yeah,
And then he goes, "No, they need to be involved in this. I
yeah.
I need to tell them." Well, um, the wife of the hippie wife walks in and sees that that the woman has stabbed her husband.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and so
Well, if I remember right, I think it's even worse. I think she bashed his head in with the telephone. Like maybe it was a knife. I guess where someone got hit with a telephone. Maybe it was the wife.
it's
I'm not
like
sure.
it is that, and then I also swear one of them got stabbed with a knife. So
I think you're right. Yeah, yeah,
it's one of the. It's been 3 weeks. People listen. We're
yeah, yeah,
getting a
yeah. And
little
we're
up in
we're trying to
age.
remember. But I will say, it's been 3 weeks since we've seen it. We still remember a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
Unlike me watching The Crow, where I've forgotten almost all of that movie. It's very forgettable. Like the 2024 Crow.
Hmm.
But but yeah, so basically midway through or towards the end of chapter 4 is where we're kind of getting a reveal of like, okay, something's up. Like obviously it's like, okay, she's not as good as we think she is.
Hmm.
Like she's like killing the guy, something's up. Not entirely sure. Then it bounces back to chapter 2, which is where pretty much it is confirmed and revealed like, oh no, 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 she's the bad guy.
Hmm.
Like this other guy, the guy who was chasing her stuff, he's not the bad guy. She's the bad guy. She's a serial killer who goes after guys who like hit her up, sort of thing. Because she's like crazed. Like she's a not mentally well person.
Hmm.
And she like has a thing out for guys
Right.
particularly. Like she kind of like she sympathizes with women, which is likely due to experiences she had in the past, sort of thing. Um, but guys, like she has no remorse for, sort of thing, to where she's the serial killer named Electric Lady. I
Yeah.
think that's what it's called. Yeah, the Electric Lady, where she will find these guys, like go to a hotel with them. Like she'll go to a bar, meet them, go to a
Hmm.
hotel with them, kind of put on this front sort of thing, and then at some point drug them, like paralysis type
Hmm.
drugging them to where they can't do anything, sort of thing. She'll brand them with a EL, or not brand that, she carved it into them. That's what it
Yes.
was. She'll carve in her serial killer initials into the person, and then likely kill them or whatever it may be. But leading up to that, it's also like a back and forth with various stuff in terms of like extreme BDSM type role play
Hmm.
and stuff, um, leading up to eventually this, like killing them,
Right.
sort of thing.
Yeah, and it keeps layering on like uh no, this isn't as bad as it seems. He's not really doing this to her. This is not bad. And then and it just kept like showing each reasoning behind all the circumstantial issues of chapter 3 looking like the worst thing ever. It's
Yeah,
a
yeah,
and it's a very good commentary on taking a piece of media um, that you're not a part of, and you have this much of it when there's this much before it and this much after it.
yeah, yeah.
You know, but I won't get to into the weeds on the philosophical stuff yet. But with the in the act with the an actual aspect of the movie where there's a play with the dialogue. Um, I think chapter 1, um, she asks the man that she's with, "Are you a
Are you a
serial
serial killer?
killer?"
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and the movie was really trying to drive home like the irony play here, and trying to put your guard over here or put your guard over there, and it was
Well,
really interesting.
a big part of Drive Home, and it overall, I think it was, yeah, I think it like hit you over the head a little bit too much with it towards the end. Like I pretty much got the gist before, and it was good. But a big part was like, hey, anyone could be a monster, including this person you see as like unassuming. This
Hmm.
this this small woman you wouldn't think would be a threat, sort of thing. To where like as it goes on, especially in like chapter 6, like you see the progression of like she's able to get away from these sort of situations and like maneuver her way around due to her seeming unassuming,
Hmm.
um, which is really fascinating. Because you have that one cop, the guy who's from I've seen that guy somewhere. I don't know if it was Dexter or what it was. I've seen that guy in some show. Um, but that guy, he's like kind of suspicious. He's kind of like, "Well, hold on, let's look at the facts." Which I will say, like, I don't know if I would even be thinking about that. If I just walked in on the situation, I
Yeah.
think I would be leaning more towards how the woman was thinking of like, "Oh, this
Hmm.
looks really bad. We need to
Right.
fix this sort of thing, or help her out sort of thing." But I guess it does just play into like, hey, anyone could be this
Well,
monster
that
sort
was
of thing.
that was the kind of the subtle fourth wall input of like, now this version of the audience is coming in on a situation that looks very bad and looks very obvious,
Yeah, yeah,
and you got somebody that is wanting to sympathize with the woman, and you have somebody of a little bit more experience in his work, and was very reluctant to just offhand trust this woman and trust the situation. So it it put you it it put, since you already knew as the audience now, it put somebody else back into it that doesn't know,
yeah.
and it
Back into what
reignited.
you were.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it kind of puts another spark into it as the movie starts to come to an end.
Oh yeah, and it's like I like the structure of it. I like the twists and stuff. I mentioned like it's genred as a horror movie, and I would still count it as a horror movie, even though it's not like the typical horror movie. Chapter 2, like the last half of chapter 2, is where that horror stuff set in for me. Because me as a guy, like putting myself like women have to are scared and have to think about that sort of stuff all the time of like,
Mm-hmm.
what if this happens with me on this date or with this person? And us guys, we don't really think about that. Like
Right.
it happening to us is what I mean. Um, that last half of chapter 2, like I was horrified slash terrified because like and I always had like empathy and sympathy for women in that sort of situation, but this definitely like for a guy, you feel it and then you can instantly like
Mm-hmm.
flip it and be like, oh my gosh, like now I like kind of see why you guys are scared of this possible sort of thing. Um, that
Right.
was the horrific part to me, was the last half of chapter 2 sort of thing.
Yeah. Um, and that was just kind of a extra um, piece of the layering, and I think what makes the movie even better. Because like I said, there's different pieces of layering where they use the chapters, and then they use the characters to kind of be you in the movie again, and then they use um, context clues or whatever to set up the movie, which was it was fun. It was really good.
And it does well of
And
like with the chapter structure, like you then looking back at some previous stuff and being like, oh, like that makes a lot more sense now. Like the
Mhm.
tiniest thing I'd mentioned before, even the tiny things of at the beginning where he's driving down the road all crazily and he's snorting the cocaine and stuff like that. There's a reason for that. He's been
Mhm.
drugged with this medicine that is
Is
basically
a
trying to make
downer.
him pass out, and yeah, it's a
Mhm.
downer. He's taking this so he can like stay alert and go
Mhm.
after her and stop her, sort of thing. It's interesting to look back at even those tiny little details. It's like, oh, okay,
Which he
there's a
ended up being a
reason.
cop, by the way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He ended up being a cop, and she also was kind of like when she was in the bathroom looking at his wallet and stuff and seeing that, she was kind of like, ah, crap, like I got a cop.
Because the man was strapped. He
Yeah, yeah,
had a Henry, I think, in the back under his car seat, and then he had
yeah.
an ankle gun. He had several uh, clips, several magazines loaded and ready. So you don't, but you just think that he's a murderer. So he just has this
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah.
you know.
And one, the acting, the actor's Kyle Gallner. I've seen him in like a bunch of other random small stuff, but he's a
He
good
was in
actor.
Jennifer's Body.
He was in, yeah, yeah, yeah. He was in Jennifer's Body. He was in The Haunting in Connecticut. He played the young teenage boy in that. A whole bunch of other stuff. He's having
Mhm.
like a resurgence. There's a bunch of small movies the past few years he's been in. Um, but he did a great job because yeah,
Yeah.
he does. He's not like a over the top like creep like
Hmm.
I'm gonna kill this. Like he is very much like he's trying to play it casual. He's trying to
Hmm.
play it like a kind of Patrick Bateman esque to where like he seems fairly normal,
Hmm.
seems a little bit off, but he's trying to come off as normal so that he can kill this lady. That's what it comes off as
Hmm.
until
And he's
like
also pretty
50
intimidating looking.
minutes. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. He's very intimidating looking. The way he talks is kind of intimidating, because it is kind of calm, but he's like he doesn't say a lot each time he talks,
Hmm.
which comes off kind of serial killer like, but really he's just kind of nervous because he's never really done this before. In terms of
Right.
he has a wife and kids, or he at least has a wife. He's
Yeah.
married, and he's cheating on his wife, sort of thing.
Hmm.
Um, so it's little tiny things like that that you as an audience, you're along for the ride and you believe this one thing, and then 50 minutes in it's like, oh no, 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 he's bad that he cheated on his wife, but all this stuff, he doesn't deserve all this stuff, sort of thing. Like he's the good guy and you're kind of rooting for him.
Right. Um, I would. I do want to say that there was with the hippie biker dynamic.
Yeah, yeah.
There was a very like I would say elevated amount of humor in that section of the movie
Oh
that had
yeah.
to deal with them. Um,
I'll go ahead and I only have 3 notes that I took, and I've already talked about both of them. One note was top 3 movies of this year for me. The other one was the chapter switching, how I liked it. I didn't like it first, but loved it at the end. My third and last note that I took, the breakfast. The freaking breakfast that they make.
yeah.
Like it it is one of the most disgusting breakfasts
Yeah.
I've ever seen in a movie. And also, people, it isn't like they're
Yeah.
like cooking diarrhea or anything like that. It's not that. They're making actual food,
Yeah.
but it's just so disgusting because it's like the most diabetic food ever. And I love sweets.
Yeah.
Before this, I downed a honey bun right before we recorded. I love sweets, but it is so disgusting, this
Yes.
breakfast that they make, because you see him making it for his wife.
Hmm.
He's making this breakfast and
Kind of like a
he's
short
adding all this
montage kind
stuff.
of thing.
It's a short montage. You're seeing it. There's a ton of gross parts about it. The grossest thing is just it's just stack on of this extremely sweet and diabetic sort of breakfast.
Hmm.
The grossest part to me is how much butter he's putting
Oh,
into the
yeah.
pan.
Oh yeah.
He's putting so much butter into the
He-
pan.
yeah.
He's like frying up eggs. He's putting butter into it. He's putting pancakes. He's putting a stick of butter into it.
Yeah.
It
There
is
was had to
so
be like 5
disgusting.
sticks of butter in this whole breakfast.
In the pan. Yeah, yeah. It is so disgusting. And I love that they wrote it because this was very much like a comedic slash disgusting thing. Even though he's
Mhm.
not like they're not eating a cat or like
Right.
a plate of poop or anything. They're eating actual food. It's just disgusting
It was
how
like epic
it is
mealtime
made.
took over for a little bit there.
It feels like that. It was so gross, and it just stacks on and stacks on. It's like, okay, we got the eggs. Okay, we got the pancakes. I don't know what else they made,
Yeah.
but it has all the
Bacon.
butter in it and
Yeah.
bacon. But let's put all the butter in the pan and stuff, and then let's drown it in syrup.
Syrup
Like
and whipped
I
cream.
love drowning my pancakes in syrup. It is not that. That is disgusting. How much syrup
It
they're
looked
putting on all
awful.
this stuff. And then the whipped cream and just all that stuff. I recommend people, if you have not watched this movie, I recommend the movie as a whole. But at the very least, whenever this comes out on DVD or something, look up the clip of the guy making breakfast. This is going to go down as top 3 grossest breakfasts in
Yeah.
movies of all time, sort of thing. It is so disgusting.
This is we are horror enthusiasts, writers, creators. I draw just some of the bloodiest things. Brandon writes some of the bloodiest things, and this was turning my stomach. And I am
Yes.
partially a health fanatic too. That plays a little bit into it, but anybody can see when you throw a stick of butter onto the pan, and it's right, and it's like at the level of the eggs also, and you just mix them.
Yes.
You know, you're just
It's so
ugh.
gross. And here's the thing. I'm not a health fanatic, so I'm on the opposite spectrum of that. This disgusted me. This breakfast disgusted me. So it's one of those things where if you watch this, and Austin was talking about we're big into horror, we make horror, we make grotesque stuff and like all that stuff. This scene has no guts. It has no blood. It has no crazy stuff. It is simply breakfast that you guys make just heightened up in a disgusting way. And it is one of the
Multiplied by
grossest
10.
things. It is one of the grossest things I've seen in it the past couple years. This breakfast scene. And there's
Mhm.
no gore or anything.
And
It
part of me was like, are they making a suicide breakfast? Like, is this their last meal?
and then they're gonna die. Yeah. And then seeing them eat it, like how they're like, yummy. It's like, oh God, they eat this every day.
Yeah.
This is what they eat every day. That's so gross.
Well, that played a big part in, in the breakfast. We all, me and my girlfriend and her brother, we all had a very loud reaction to that. That was just
Oh
so
yeah.
funny. I liked, so the biker had like speakers set up all around his
Yeah, around his
house,
house and stuff. Yeah.
and these speakers, for whatever reason, were shouting a news broadcast that I guess was just continually going. And on
Yeah.
the news broadcast was just kind of a, what's that show, Coast to Coast? It's a radio show, and they just have people call in about their paranormal experiences.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
And one of them, the one that was playing, was about Bigfoot, and it was just talking about, it was just this guy talking about his Bigfoot experience. And they were saying he's real. And I saw him and his kid out in my yard just last week, and then they destroyed this piece of my property. And then later in the movie, the woman is asking about, or saying like, "Oh, I went through the woods. I just got here through." And he's like, "You didn't see a squatch, did you?" It's,
Yeah, yeah.
it's just some squatchy woods out there. I was like, yes, my man. That's my man right there. It was
Yeah,
so
yeah,
good.
and through a bit of dialogue, I think the wife says at some point, you because already they're like hippies. You find out they're like
Hmm.
very hippie like. They live in the middle of the woods. They have these speakers up that are radio shows talking about Sasquatch and stuff. The guy like is like, "There's Sasquatch in the woods near me," sort of thing. You gotta watch out. The wife even mentions like, "Oh, we're doomsday preppers." I forgot what the line was, but like they're
Oh yeah.
doomsday preppers. So like all of this stuff. I'm not saying like doomsday preppers are like quacks. I'm not saying that, but it's the stereotypical person you see, the old person you see of like, oh, they're like a hippie who like believes in every sort of conspiracy theory sort of thing, like everyone's out to get them sort of thing.
Yeah. Um, and I don't know if maybe all of a sudden I'm thinking about it. Um, the I wonder if that was just like kind of a play on like they they were preparing for, a terrible thing, or they were preparing for situations that
Oh, that's a good point.
that did not pertain to the situation that ultimately killed them. You know what I mean?
That has to be a part of it. That's not accidental. That definitely has to be a part of it. It's like, oh, like these people have prepared for like every situation except for this random realistic one where
Hmm.
it's guy chasing girl through woods, she knocks on door, winds up killing them sort of thing.
Hmm.
Like they prepared for all this stuff, but they weren't prepared for this sort of thing. That definitely is intentional thinking about it now.
um, and I'm gonna be, God, I don't know how I should come out about this.
No, that's good.
It's a tinge political. I feel like this is a very 2A uh, movie. It was a very pro 2A movie.
2A. Oh, like
Second
Second
Amendment.
Amendment.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I could kind of see that. Yeah, I kind of see
I'm
that.
it. She go. She's being chased by the guy with the gun. He looks like he's the bad guy because he's got all the guns.
Yeah, yeah,
Turns out he's not the bad guy. She goes to these people for refuge. Hey, do y'all have any guns? Oh no, we're hippies. We don't have any guns. She's now then left without a, protection. They are then left without that protection from her, and
yeah,
then
yeah.
so uh, then she she ends up with like two or three guns. She does shoot one of the cops. At the very end, she gets out and she is, doing another manipulation, trying to get help, playing off her situation, and has a woman come pick her up. As soon as she gets into the truck with this woman, uh, she reveals a gun. And when she did
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
this woman pulls out her 6-shooter revolver
yeah.
and
Shoots.
puts one in her.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
without hesitation. A
Well,
gun, bang.
in that case, I understand it because not just like it's a random person on the road like coming up to me in the truck and they're disheveled and all this stuff. It's not entirely that. It's that mixed with she gets in the car or gets in the truck and she starts to pull a gun out on me. Like I can understand like, oh crap, like I'm about to die or something. So the quick reaction there. Um, with that, I can understand it. The lady doesn't have the context that we do, so it is that one thing where like she hasn't seen the past hour and 20 minutes that we have. But with the situation of someone pulling a gun on you, it's like, well, most people don't like entirely pull a gun on someone unless they're meaning like harm to me.
Right.
Where it's like, oh crap, like I gotta had to defend myself. Yeah, it'd be one thing if it was like she was about to punch the lady, or if she pulled a knife or something like that. But it's like gun. It's like she could be trying to kill me,
She pulled
man.
that thing out like she was a quick shoot of the West. She just, she's like, I'm gonna shoot you, bang! And it's just like she was sitting there. It just cuts to her with the gun, and like she must have been like,
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, it just shows like the serial killer, like, I mean, throughout the movie you just see, like, and I think she even comments on it at some point, where she is like in survival mode. Like she is an animal at this point, just trying to
Mhm,
survive. Like things have spiraled out of control. I'm just trying to survive. And you see that with a lot of actual serial killers, is when they start to get caught, or something's about to tip off, like they're in survival mode. Their life is now over, but they are still living. They still desire to live, to where they're
mhm.
doing all this stuff to try to escape, even though it's like, hey, dude, you're likely not going to escape. They feel like a cornered puppy almost, where it's like, no, no, no. Like I'm a Rottweiler. Dang it, I'm going to get out of this.
Right. It's a well. I also find it interesting that the person that killed her was a woman. People that she
Hmm.
had sympathy, or not people, but like um, others that she had sympathy for.
Yeah, yeah,
That you know she tried harder not to kill, and she, the woman rescuing her had no sympathy built up for uh, her. So it's just every way this movie could have the tables turned, they did have the tables turned. So
oh yeah, yeah.
it was a really it's really good. Like actually, it's not. It's an 8 out of 10.
Oh, there we go. Through the discussion, we had it boosted.
um, yeah, and that's part of the reason why I like to talk about movies in general, because um, sometimes there are things that you just don't really click with immediately, and getting to get the details out helps get even further into the actual, like, maybe reasoning for or philosophy behind the movie. And I'm not saying the movie was a 2A, like it's not like a Hail America
No, no, yeah,
uh,
yeah,
kind of movie. But I feel like it was trying to give the Second Amendment a fair shake, um,
yeah, yeah.
as to how it's used and viewed uh, along amongst us Midwestern town people.
Yeah, yeah. I can see that. Yeah, like, uh, yeah. Thinking about it, like that's how a lot of these people kind of get away from her, is through gun or whatever. She uses gun here
Mm-hmm.
and there, um, but yeah, yeah. That's how he the message. I'm joking about this, but the message of the movie is always have a hidden pistol in your boots. That way, you're about to die. You can stop your death,
Mm-hmm.
because he would have died if he
Yeah.
didn't have that pistol in the boot.
Yep. I'm not going to go any. Yeah, I think they. I really feel like they nailed that one, so I don't have to say anything else.
But as a movie as a whole, like,
Hmm.
I really enjoyed it. Um, I'm sure there's some faults and some flaws. I if I watched it again and really looked at it, there's probably some faults and flaws I could find, like you can find with any movie, really. But
Hmm.
I can't think of really many. The only one I thought of was when we were talking about before, of the sitting at the tree and pouring the alcohol. That,
Right.
do that later. But but aside
Well,
from
my
that, like,
my girlfriend pointed out one, um,
yeah, yeah.
where by the time that she had escaped the hotel, the police should have been everywhere, and that guy should have been getting radioed and stuff from the police, because I think she
That's
let
true.
that girl live that she stole the clothes and stole the car from. And by the time
Yeah.
all that had happened, um, there should have been a police report out that would have been like, "Hey, there's a lady. Um, she stole this, stole XYZ. She looks like this," and so that was kind of a plot hole that stood out to my girlfriend. And then when she pointed out to me, I was
The
like, "Oh man,
the lady that did call and got her throat slit, or she died. She gets killed because she's making the phone
yeah."
call. Um, I forgot what I was going to get with that point. I was going to ask a question, but I can't remember. Never mind. Um,
It's
I remember what it was going to be. Like, did she actually get up with 911, that lady, or did she die before she got up with 911?
I I have no idea. Um, I just figured that there would be some method, some way that by the time all the time had elapsed, that those police, when they went in and they found that situation with her on the freezer and him, you know, spewing blood out of his neck, that they would have already had an idea of who they were dealing with.
That's true. What I will say is like, I think information, because if you factor from when he, because this is when other people notice and start paying attention, when he starts shooting, like has the gun from the boot, starts shooting, and she starts running away,
Mm-hmm.
to uh her being locked in, like handcuffed to the freezer. It's like maybe 30 minutes to an hour at most, like in terms of
At
real
most.
time, those events. To where I could see like police have some information, but they don't have a lot. But you do bring up the thing of like, well, did they not hear about a woman? Like let's say that lady at the lobby lived.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like, wouldn't a part of her police call or her report be like, it was a woman, like she killed the lady right next to me, sort
Yeah.
of thing. To where like they would be possibly looking for a woman. Um, and I'm not defending the movie. I think ultimately, you and your girlfriend are right about this. Of like that's kind of a leap in logic that that's not there. But I guess one possible thing that could happen is maybe she did kill that other lady in the lobby, but based on
I
what
still
we've
feel
seen
like
with
there
her
was so much to
character.
the hotel that she was in. It
Well,
seems
well,
like it would have
the
been
rest of
hard.
the rest of the hotel believes that like it's the guy.
Yeah.
The guy is the bad guy. Like the only person that saw like, oh crap, this girl was the one who gets her throat slit, and then the lady next to her who's like gives the car keys, sort of thing. So really, she's the only one that sees like, oh gosh, this lady's like crazy killer, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So either it's uh, just not thinking about in terms of the writing and shooting, of like, hey, like she would tell the cops that it's a lady, or we're to assume possibly that she gets killed off screen
Yeah.
by the girl, which is possible, but based on the girl, and like she kind of has a code with women that she does stick with,
Mm-hmm.
kind of. I don't see her actually killing that lady.
Yeah.
So I think you guys might be right about that.
And then also, he went upstairs to call somebody, the other police or his friend or something, right? And to kind of try and explain the situation before he goes back down to her.
Well, whenever he was at the hippie's house,
Yeah. He went upstairs
yeah,
to
yeah,
use their
he
phone.
calls his friend. But I think we hear his conversation. From what I remember, stupidly does not go into detail.
Yeah.
Uh, well, also, I say stupidly. I understand in a sense because like he was cheating on the wife and stuff like that, and he wants, and also like this looks bad on him, not just the cheating on the wife, but like people could
Coke in his
perceive him as the
system,
killer
people
sort of
reporting
thing,
him.
coke in his
Yeah.
system, that sort of thing, to where like he contacts a friend about it and is
Yeah.
like, hey, help me resolve this. I'm
Hmm.
going to be in trouble, but essentially like, let's make it to where I'm in less trouble, kind of,
Hmm.
because you're
Well,
my buddy and
I
you
was
can kind of
pointing
help
that
me with
out
this.
because it might have been a very long phone call that a, a lot of time, and even if it's not like a lot of time, it probably was like 10 minutes, that
Yeah,
extra
yeah.
time that passed while he was up there making that phone call. And I'm just, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, well, something would have been going on. Some alarm about this would have been going off somewhere, right? Like there's a flipped car, abandoned truck. Um, I don't know how far out of the situation they got out of. I mean, maybe they it, GTA perimeter got out of it enough to stall for time.
Yeah, I think it's possible that his buddy, when he called his buddy probably had some sort of radio thing go on about the
Hmm.
thing at the hotel. I don't think like at that time his buddy or cops were correlating the thing that happened at the hotel with my cop buddy calling me.
Right.
I think he probably assumed it was a separate situation to where like it's only one squad car that goes out to that house. Because if it was one of
Yeah.
those things where like they easily saw and could correlate, yeah, you'd have like half, at least half the cops going to that house because there's multiple murders and stuff like that, um, tying to this. So I think it's one of those things where it must have been far enough to where you couldn't initially correlate the two events, kind of thing, the house and then the hotel.
Yeah. Well, I think we've reviewed this movie um, for all its juice, and I'm good to call it an 8 out of 10. Like you said, I think there were just two problems that
Yeah.
they're kind of just slightly in the way of the movie, but like the grand messaging um, and the purpose of the movie still was very very good and well written.
Oh yeah, yeah, and hopefully they make some sort of deal with some sort of streaming service to where they can at least make their money back in production, and also so more people can look at it and
Hmm.
watch it. Because if it's not going to be on streaming, like no one's going to watch
It
this
seems like a
movie. No
Netflix
one,
movie.
no one watched it in theater.
Yeah,
And if it's not going to be on streaming, like no one's going to rent it unless like people are talking about it.
right. It really feels like it would fit into the Netflix library.
Oh yeah. And I would say if it goes on Netflix, people are going to be talking about it because
A year
there are some
later.
good
Yeah.
Netflix show. There's some good Netflix stuff, but the average Netflix thing is like, that was decent. The average Netflix thing is like a 5 out of 10 or a 6 out of 10. To
Hmm.
where if this pops up on Netflix, people are like, oh dang, like, hey, let's talk about this. Something that's not like average from
Right.
Netflix.
All right, Brandon. I appreciate you joining me tonight on both the podcast and now this review. And thank you for the recommendation of Strange Darling. It was a very uh, fun movie to watch. And if nothing else, go watch it for that amazing breakfast that was made.
Oh my
Um,
god.
and, and thank you for joining us tonight. I've been Austin Light with American Demon Comics. You could find my stuff over at AmericanDemonComics.com. And I've been joined by Brandon Ingram with Dismay Comics, and he has a Kickstarter go out right now as of September 19th, and that will end in October
They have till October 11th. And that's the
11th.
only way to get the comic. It's not going to be available anywhere else online. If you want to get the comic or any of my previous work or original art or any of that sort of stuff, you got to do it before October 11th on Kickstarter. Won't be available anywhere else after.
Awesome. And yeah, I'm gonna that's about it. See ya.